A response to the book Founding Brothers, written by Joseph J. Ellis, in the eyes of the 1980 men's U.S. Olympic hockey team goalie Jim Craig. Of Founding Brothers is called The Duel. It is called The Duel because it is about the famous historic duel between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. In this duel, Burr shoots Hamilton and causes a fatal wound. Hamilton passes away a day later. Now I, Jim Craig, will explain my connections to the first chapter with my miracle story, the first thing to come to my mind while reading this story. The miracle on ice between the U.S. men's 1980 Olympic ice hockey team versus the Soviet Union is like the duel. The Soviets are like Hamilton because they have a great reputation in hockey, as did Hamilton had with politics. The United States is like Burr because we are victorious over the Soviets in the game like Burr is over Hamilton in the duel. Burr's fatal shot on Hamilton, which was the cause to his death, was like the United States game-winning goal against the Soviets, causing the Soviets no longer to be able to compete for the gold medal. The game is like the duel because it is two teams trying to defeat each other, just like Burr and Hamilton were trying to defeat or kill each other. Only the game on ice is ended with no deaths. The second chapter of Founding Brothers is titled The Dinner. Chapter 2 discusses the infamous dinner which Thomas Jefferson held to decide the issues of the early nation's deficit and the location of its new capital. Ellis begins his chapter by acknowledging Jefferson's account of the dinner, which happens to be the only recorded account of the dinner in history. He then uses hindsight to arrive at a slightly different understanding. Hamilton believed that he had a solution to the national debt, but Madison claimed it would penalize the veterans of the war. The dinner was held in hopes to help solve the problem. I related this through my sports history. As a goalie, I have seen many teammates argue and it not end well. It would often end in a fight. If everyone worked together, we will be more sufficient. So the dinner was called to help these politicians work out a plan to solve our nation's problems. It did. Chapter 3 is titled The Silence. In Chapter 3, Ellis discusses a long-standing silence the government had over the slavery question. Shortly after Jefferson's dinner party, a few Quaker delegations presented petitions to the House of Representatives calling for an end to the African slave trade. The Southern representatives were adamant that the question be ignored. They described the Quakers as pacifists that refused to fight for their own independence. They also brought up that the Constitution prohibited Congress from passing laws abolishing any form of slavery until 1808. This is like the players from Minnesota not getting along with the players from Boston. Previously in NCAA hockey, University of Minnesota men's ice hockey team defeated Boston University's team to move on and play. It was a cheap and dirty game. The players from Boston who did not let go of the loss formed a grudge and are like the Southern representatives harassing the Quakers and not letting anything be done about the question of slavery. Chapter 4 is titled The Farewell. Quote, a legend in his own time, Americans had been describing Washington as the father of the country since 1776, which is to say, before there was even a country, end quote, found on page 120. This chapter is about Washington voluntarily stepping down from president after his second term, only 8 years, which the people are not used to after dealing with the monarchs from their old forms of government. This chapter deals with this farewell letter to the people. Washington unofficially established the two-term tradition. During his farewell address, Washington stated the nation would stay strong if the nation stayed unified, maintained its ground, and stayed out of foreign affairs. The Miracle team can relate to this. We played as a family and were unified as one. We did not give up after each Soviet goal. We stood our ground and fought our way to the top to win the game. And finally, we stayed out of foreign affairs. For the team, a foreign affair was not from another country, but on a much smaller scale of not letting others join the team late or affect the team in any way. During the fifth chapter, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson are now running against each other for the presidential election. Once great friends, they are now enemies. The presidential campaign was not structured at all during the time, and there was worry whether the nation's government could withstand a debate. Political parties continued to grow further apart. They started attacking each other verbally, spreading slander about politicians from the other party. It became so bad, politicians started bringing in personal lives of other politicians. Adams won the election but made the mistake of keeping most of Hamilton's cabinet. Hamilton's cabinet despised Adams and would work against his plans. This once again connects to the miracle team. Herb Brooks, the coach, was like Hamilton's cabinet. He would do many things to go against our team to test us. As the Olympics came closer, Herb Brooks brought in a new player. We then talked with the coach after the game, telling him he could not do this to us because we were family. In the final chapter of the story, titled The Friendship, Adams returned to Quincy, Massachusetts as a defeated man. He trades politics for farming, hoping to clear his mind. Ellis suggests that Adams fails at doing so. In July 1801, Adams is working in the fields alongside his hired hands. He was plagued by thoughts of Jefferson, who antagonized him and betrayed his personal friendship. The men did not talk for many years. In 1804, Abigail Adams wrote a personal letter to Jefferson containing her condolences on the loss of his daughter from childbirth complications. Their friendship is sparked back up again. The friendship and bond between the Miracle Boys is never lost, but fades away. We always have our tie together, but many of us lost correspondence with each other. We're all brought back together one last time at Herb Brooks' funeral, just like Adams and Jefferson reformed their friendship off the passing of Jefferson's daughter. Now that you know of my connections and thoughts from the story Founding Brothers, it is time for you to find out what I have learned from this book. I have learned that almost anything in life comes back to business, whether it is sports, which was the start of my career, or if it's politics. Everyone is worried about themselves and money. So this means they'll do whatever it takes to succeed. Founding Brothers has many great life lessons in the book. Joseph J. Ellis has done a great job creating this book, which not only teaches students, but anyone who reads it, even athletes like me.